Different perspectives, same passion. Welcome to the Coach and the Couch Potato Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a late night recording of episode 14 of the Coach and the Couch Potato.
Yeah.
As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. We had a busy weekend, but what is going on?
Yeah, busy weekend. Football meetings starting back up, so that was fun to get back in the swing of things and kind of and talk some ball and meet the new staff and stuff. So, but yeah, busy weekend, man. How you doing?
We are hanging in there. Got to spend some time up at the lake yesterday with the fam for a 2-year-old's birthday party.
That's awesome.
It doesn't get much more entertaining than that. So yeah, that was cool. We've got USBC Nationals coming up this week.
There we go.
So big week there. Gonna, hopefully go down and watch us shock the world.
Yeah, there we go.
If it can't be us, it's got to be Wichita State and my boy Carter Street. So
there we go.
We will see what's going on. So good weekend. Our weekend was probably pale in comparison to Coach Day and company.
Yeah.
Big weekend. Lots of visitors. They had an event at the Woody on Saturday night. Some NIL fundraising. Lost out on a silent auction item I was chasing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had a Caleb Downs Shut F7 signed full size.
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't go overboard, though, because I'm very OCD about the way things are signed. And it was signed on the wrong side.
Oh.
It's one of those. We're going to use not a bad example, but very polarizing figure we lost this week. The Juice.
Yeah.
Helmet or face mask to the right. So the Downs helmet was signed on the wrong side, though.
Gotcha.
So I did not go overboard.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, they had that bunch of commits, and then obviously the spring game.
Yeah.
80,000 strong.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously doesn't touch the year we had 100.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I thought the presentation was awesome. I know a lot of people are saying I didn't like it. How cool is it to see Joel Klatt down on the field? And a couple of things stood out to me, like when he was talking to Knowles, and Knowles is sitting there calling plays while he's talking to him. So between that, when he was standing with Day and Lincoln through the pick, and you could see the frustration with Ryan. So that was cool. I thought the presentation was cool. What about you?
Yeah, man, the presentation was great. I really didn't know what to expect with it being on Fox. Like, how are they going to do this? How much are they going to interact? But, this is where I think like the XFL or the UFL, has really kind of opened up those doors and shown how cool it can be for in-game interactions to happen. And so to see that at the spring game and to kind of highlight Coach Day really taking a step back from play calling and just being the CEO, and he could give fans like some insight as to what was going on. And I love when it's a football guy and a football guy talking, Joel Klatt, former quarterback, like chopping it up with the former quarterback. Like, I think those things are really cool. So I was really impressed with that, man. And like you said, 80,000 people, like, it's insane to think about for a spring game. You know what I mean? Like for a glorified non-tackling scrimmage, there are still 80,000 people that show up. So that's pretty cool, man. No, I thought it was really good. I loved how they interacted with the players in the game. And like you said, Coach Knowles and Coach Hartline, like that was cool, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and shout out Urban and Brady Quinn. I thought they did cool in the booth.
Yeah.
They didn't have to dive nearly as deep as Klatt does on a regular Saturday.
Yeah.
But it was cool to hear Urban kind of get a run at that because, again, Urban is a polarizing figure, but the guy knows ball.
Yes, he does.
I mean, so that was cool. Be interested to see how much difference there is, if any, this Saturday with the team up north.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to like hold a funeral for Harbaugh. Sharon's going to be crying again. Or, the fact that, they're approaching, I don't know if you've seen this on the 247 recruit list this year. They are approaching to the point where you have to hit load more to see them.
Okay.
They are like 48th or 50th right now.
Wow.
And they're about to lose.
Coming off a national championship.
Yeah. They're about to lose a guy who they thought they've had in a bag for 2 years. And Dion swooped in and is getting crystal balls today. So
wow. That's crazy. As much as I don't like the team up north, and as weird as I think Coach Harbaugh is, how much fun would this have been if Jim Harbaugh was still there? The in-game interviews would have been pure comedy.
He would have been drinking hilarious. His milk, talking about how much he saved on his khakis at Walmart.
Oh my gosh,
man.
I would have tuned in just for that. That would have been
100%. I'm going to tune in because the Michigan insiders right now are very much worried about quarterback play. They are petrified.
Yeah.
It's just, and then you see like CJ Carr in the Notre Dame spring game just dropping dimes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, guess what? You let this kid walk.
Yeah.
His grandfather is arguably, I'm going to still say he was a better coach overall, big picture, than Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And you let him walk. I mean, that's when you knew things were kind of going off the rails.
Yeah.
And then, also not to stir the pot right before we got on here. Sounds like there may be something else coming this week from our friends up north.
Oh, gosh.
Something involving a staffer is all that is being floated around.
Okay.
All
right.
I read about a week ago that, and this is a guy who has been tuned in to all of it, that Chris Ballas knows more than he's leading on. Well, then Chris Ballas posts today on their premium message board, another black eye coming this week. So, yeah.
That's not good.
No, we will see. But, we digress. We haven't talked about them for a minute. So, first, kind of the fun stuff with the spring game.
Yeah.
It's always one of those things where somebody stands out to you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start with the defense because, we like defense.
Yes, we do.
I don't think I can tell you one guy that stood out to me because they all did.
Yeah.
Especially the secondary and the D line.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if the D line shining was so much an indictment on them or indicative of what we're looking at on the O line still. But it didn't matter if it was the ones with Sawyer and JTT. Tywan Malone was in there wreaking havoc. Hero Canoe. I mean, you saw all the guys who we've talked about since we've started doing this, and they were all just wreaking havoc.
Yeah, they were.
For the defense, I can't tell you one person myself, but I'm sure you're going to have a guy or two because that's what you do. I mean, I will say your boy IGB. If we're going to give some flowers, we're going to give IGB his flowers.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Yeah. So watching, since we started doing this and since I've been a coach, I'd watch Buckeye games a little differently over the last decade. And so when I watching the spring game, I think it's a good time to kind of see what they're having fun with and, all the work that's been put in. And so for me, the secondary BIA is in full effect. I mean, from top to bottom, we have legitimately 5 cornerbacks that could be starters at major Power 5 schools. Not just starters in Division I football. I'm talking starters at major Power 5 schools. IGB he's becoming one of my favorite Buckeyes of all time. And it's just because of how confident he is and how much of a dog he is. He doesn't care that it's a spring game. He just wants to go out and compete compete. And like as a corner, you got to have guys that are like that. And that's where you see the separation at times with Alabama and Georgia. You know, they got those guys. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is a dog, you know what I mean? And so for us to see, you know, some of that SEC style play in the back end come up to Ohio State, it's phenomenal. You know, everybody else, I mean, Caleb Downs is Caleb Downs. I don't think he was in the wrong spot at any time during the spring game. He's so fluid, and he's so talented. Denzel Burke didn't get a lot of reps. He got very minimal reps, but you know, we know what we're going to get from him. Jermaine Matthews is a dog. And the one thing I loved about him is that they were moving him inside with the injury now to Lorenzo Styles. They've got to have somebody who can be in that slot position if Jordan Hancock were to go down. And so to see him get reps in the slot, he's very good there. He's way more physical than he gets credit for. And so Jermaine Matthews is another guy who I think is going to be special. But the guy who completely gets overlooked,
Simpson Hunt.
Oh my gosh, man. First off, he's huge. Like I don't think people realize how big he is. He's every bit of 6 foot, 6'1", and he is rocked out. Like he is all muscle. Oh, and he's the fastest player on the team. And if you see him, like, yeah, there's been plays in the spring where Jeremiah Smith has made some plays, but like Calvin Simpson Hunt is like right there in the perfect spot. He just needs to make a play on the ball. And so that's another guy that I think is this is his first spring. You know, he wanted to go run track his senior year. And so I thought he played very well. And then a guy that I was very high on coming out of high school is Aaron Scott. He had the most reps out of anybody on the defense. He had 72 reps. Like they had other guys they could have put in, but they want this kid to get on the field. I can see it. Like they want him. So 72 reps in the spring game. Like, come on, man.
As a freshman who still has your black stripe.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, that's the thing. Like,
yeah, 72
that's
reps.
another thing I thought that was really cool during the presentation. They explained the black stripe.
Yep.
You know, we've explained it here, but you know, a lot of the people watching are like, "What the hell is this?" Yeah. And so, kudos to them for that. But yeah, the Aaron Scott thing, man, is wild. I mean, that shows you, you know, what's up. I mean,
yeah, he's super talented. And, you know, the other standouts for me on the defense were obviously the defensive line. But the biggest thing that I liked were, you know, in the first drive, I don't know if many people noticed this, but there was a play where they got down into the red zone and there were 5 defensive linemen on the field. So you had JT, you had Jack Sawyer, you had Tyleek wasn't in there. It was Hero Canoe, Ty Hamilton, and Kenyatta Jackson. They were all on the field at the same time with Sonny Styles at Mike linebacker and 5 defensive backs. So they had 4 corners on the field and Caleb Downs at safety. And I'm like, I can't fathom if I'm an offensive coach and it's a passing situation and I see that, I know what coverage you're going to be playing, but can I block everybody? And who's going to get open? You know what I mean? Like, it was just the amount of possibilities that they have defensively is just, it's phenomenal. So I was very pleased to see that. And then the depth pieces too. I thought Jaden Bonsu played well. Jalen McClain had a great play. He's really stepped up. You know, you had Andre Griffin's son out there making plays and stuff. So I like seeing that, man. So defensively, it checked all the boxes for me. You know, Jim Knowles, you can see he's kind of getting back to who he is. And I think defensively, there's some big things that are coming this way, man. And there's a lot of depth. I'm a tad concerned about the safety depth, just because you don't know how people are going to return from injury. And it looks like Jahad Carter is injured again, which is not good. He was not dressed and he was limping around. And so I'm a tad worried about that because we've got 3 guys that are injured right now. So I hope they get back. But other than that, man, top to bottom, watch out. And your boy Gabe Powers,
Don't sleep. Don't sleep.
He played well, man.
Yeah, and that package where you've got Sonny as the Mike, you have the top 2 safety recruits from their 2 classes on the field. Like,
how crazy is that?
It's nuts, man. It's bonkers. So the offense, I am going to give one guy a shot. Obviously, we didn't go out and throw the ball around. And we're not. That wasn't the idea. You're not trying to get guys making cuts and getting hurt. And Sam Williams Dixon,
yeah, man,
stud. Ran hard. Kind of had me wondering. You might be able to give some insight on this. To practice with the crown. He wasn't the only one. Somebody on defense had one too.
Yeah, Denzel Burke had one. So we've always done it with kids who have had concussions in the past. And then for kids like in the run, just with their running style, like he's a violent runner. So in practice, you just kind of want to protect them a little bit. And so that's where you see that. I know like for us, we had some defensive backs who had some concussion issues in the past, and they would wear those things. We played Toledo Whitmer this year, and they had a kid return from a concussion who actually wore one of those in a game. And so that's all that is. I mean, they are technically allowed to wear those in games. So, I mean, you do what you got to do to keep the kids safe. So that's what that's about.
I mean, I went to high school with a guy who played a game with a bubble because of concussions. And then at Frost Canlau, our senior year, he got hit. He was a lineman, and the bubble popped off and starts rolling down the field.
Wow.
But along with Sam Williams Dixon, I'm going to give the running back room in general.
Yeah, man.
A lot of props. Travion Henderson. I text you this Saturday. His cuts look amazing.
Yeah.
Quinshawn is going to do Quinshawn things.
Yep.
Peoples looked good.
He did.
TC Caffey looked good.
Yeah.
And then how about Corey Maggs, a backup quarterback?
Yeah, Mason.
Getting carries. Mason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting carries. Like,
yeah,
he looked good.
Yeah, he did. He did. He was we played them my first year at Finley. We played them in the second round of the playoffs, and he's a runner. I mean, he can run the ball. He's not a small kid. He's a good sized kid. So he's definitely got some running ability for sure.
So yeah, I mean, and then as far as the receivers, they did receiver things. Emeka made sure nobody forgot about him. Yeah. He's like, y'all talking about Jeremiah, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Jaden Ballard got a lot of burn.
Yeah, I was happy to see that.
Obviously, they used Jeremiah on both with the 1s, the 2s, the 3s. Again, I think similar to Aaron Scott. They want him getting that environment.
Yeah.
So and obviously, like I said, we didn't sling the rock. But yeah, I would say the running back room and Sam Williams Dixon for me.
Yeah, for sure. The running back room really stood out to me, and it's because, with Dallin Hayden leaving, there are a lot of questions as to, are we going to go into the portal? And if we decide to tomorrow or whenever that is over the next 2 weeks, if we decide to go into the portal and get a running back, I would totally get it, given our history over the last 3 years of having backs become injured, and we need some at the end of the season. So I would totally get it. But I legitimately think that we have, outside of our top 2, I think with TC, with James, and with Sam Williams Dixon, I think we're okay. I really do think we're okay. So I was very impressed. James Peoples, I think, has potential to be pretty elite here. And SWD, like, he was a forgotten recruit because he had to sit out the last half of the season because he transferred to Pick North. And so his recruiting rankings never improved because of that. And in those 5 games, like, he played very well, but he was also a little banged up. And so you just didn't know what you were going to get with him. And so I was very happy to see them find success. And, if we decide not to go into the portal for a running back, I feel pretty good about it. Some other standouts for me, I mean, I hated that he got a little banged up in G. Scott, but I just love that he's playing with confidence. And, this is a guy who is truly a Buckeye. I mean, through and through. His dad is a Buckeye, always trusted the process, and now he's at a point where he's going to be a player for us. And so I was happy to see, Will Howard complete that nice ball to him on the sideline. That was a good catch. And I want him to find success this year. So I was very happy to see him, do some good things while he was out there. And then, quarterback wise, I know we're going to talk about it, but I was really impressed with Will Howard. And when I say impressed, did he look like an elite quarterback? I don't think he's there yet, but I was very impressed with his pocket presence. Everybody talks about how well or how good of a runner he is, but I just love the fact that he stays in the pocket and it's not a frantic thing. He's nice and calm. There was one play where he held the ball a little too long, but I love seeing quarterbacks who are comfortable in that environment. And you could just see like that veteran presence started to show a little bit. So I was very happy to see that from him. Obviously, we know, and we'll talk about it more, but the quarterback battle's far from over. But, offensively, I saw some good things, and our offensive line has improved very much so. It just doesn't help that they are going up against JT and Jack every single play. I mean, that sack Carson Hinsman gave up in the first drive, like, can't even blame him. He just got bull rushed by Jack Sawyer. And if you look at Jack Sawyer, it's a man child. That's a hard thing to defend. So, I was pleased with what we did offensively. With the wind and everything, it was going to be tough to throw the ball. But, those are the guys that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. Obviously, with a spring game comes, what worries you.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I use the term worry loosely, especially I've got two position groups wrote down. One of them, and you hit on it, is partially because of G getting banged up. The tight ends are interesting right now to me. Like, I thought it would be like G and then, Kazmarek. And, Kazmarek was playing with like the 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
And had the drop, which I get. And then the O-line is probably a little more worrisome. But like you said, it's hard to get a gauge because like the sack that Will Howard took early on, odds are in a game situation, he's scrambling in that situation.
For sure.
Which, obviously QBs weren't live. So, and you saw them exploring a ton of different combinations on the right side. The left side, I think, Josh Simmons, it seems to look comfortable. Seth McLaughlin, no snap issues.
Yep.
They kind of had that revolving door at right guard of Shabola and Hinsman, and Hinsman's a natural guard, so I see it. Tegra's got the Tegra's frame and just athleticism is just
a
crazy.
Monster. Yeah.
Josh Fryer, I think, will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it'll be interesting to see, if some stud goes in tomorrow or within the next 2 weeks. I think they're players, but we'll see. But overall, nothing overly worrisome.
No, I agree with that too. I was, obviously everybody knows Luke's my guy, Luke Montgomery. And so, for him to rep with the 1s all spring long and then to see him go with the 2s, like that was, maybe he's just hit like a sophomore slump or hit that wall a little bit. And the one thing that people overlook is you look at the offensive lines that the team up north has had over the last couple of years, and it's just been so veteran heavy. And that's why they've been so good. And so the idea of being able to put somebody out there like a Carson Hinsman who, has 12 games of being a starter at Ohio State, and you add that with 4 returning starters as well. I mean, that's a big deal. And so like, I think it's still going to be a good competition if they decide not to go into the portal. But as we were talking about before, I think the Buckeyes are in a very unique, I don't want to say unique, but they're in a situation now where they are, like in Alabama with Saban, they are expected to be this top dog. And so they have to continue to create that, competition and put pressure on the guys. And so if that means they have to go into the portal and get somebody that they feel is game ready, that's got a ton of reps as a starter, and then they've got to do that. And that's not a knock on anybody that's on the current roster. I think, obviously I think Luke's going to be a stud. I mean, they showed a clip of him in pregame doing outside zone drills, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, you just kind of forget how athletic these guys are. And you talk about Tegra, being just a freak of nature. And then you know that these guys have it in them. It just, offensive line is a position where it takes time. It takes time, and it's not an easy thing to do. Here's the thing. These guys, and I was talking to one of my buddies about this today. These offensive linemen are in high school, and they don't even really need coached. They just go out and maul people and dominate people, snap in and snap out. And so the first time that they're faced with having to compete with somebody who's just as good as them, that's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a culture shock, but it's definitely eye-opening to have to go out and fight and work for it. And so, like, all those things are brand new, and that's why it takes time to develop. We didn't run a lot of outside zone and things like that at Finley. You know what I mean? And so the footwork and different things like that, it's all new for these guys, especially with Chip Kelly coming in. So, whatever the Buckeyes decide to do, whether it's, stick with who we got or go into the portal, like, the offensive line will be figured out. And I truly believe, like, with the addition of Seth McLaughlin and who we have returning up front, like, our offensive line, I think, has potential to be pretty good. We just got to get right guard figured out. And so it will happen. I trust Coach Day and all the moves that he's made so far this offseason. So they'll figure it out.
For sure. Obviously you kind of touched on it, the elephant in the room, the quarterback battle.
Yeah.
The wind, like the one throw Julian Sayin had just stands out to me. A frog hair late.
Yep.
But the wind really screwed that ball up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that kid's release is rocket fast.
It's pretty quick, man.
So I do think, just from what I saw, command of the offense, everything, I think Will Howard's got to be the guy to start the season.
I do too.
And he doesn't need to be elite. He needs to just be really, really good.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we struggled last year, is that there were a few times that we needed Kyle McCord to be elite. At Notre Dame, Kyle McCord was elite in the last 2 minutes of the game.
He was.
Awesome. Kudos to you, Kyle. Michigan, Kyle wasn't very elite. The pick in the beginning of the game was just a bad throw. I mean, I know there are people that are going to blame Marv, and Marv should have tried to play defense on it, but at the end of the day, that's on Kyle. A slant is all about timing, and if it's not there, you got to either go to a check down and get rid of it or run.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the game, yes, the O-line got tangled up. Timing got screwed up. Kyle got stepped on. But, again, do you have to take the shot there? Not yet.
No, you don't.
So, yeah, I think Will Howard's the guy. Devin Brown looked really good. I mean, so I think he's the backup. I think Julian Sayin's going to be the third string / other backup.
Yeah.
And I think Aaron Nolan redshirts, which I think coming into this year, Aaron Nolan probably expected to redshirt anyway.
Yeah.
And the thing that stood out to me with Air is, like, he didn't look bad when he was in there.
No, he didn't.
The fact they did not give him a rep until the second half of the game makes you wonder, what conversations have gone on. Have they already said, we need you to develop more? You're not ready. And I think he seems like a kid that would take that kind of coaching. But obviously I left a name out of that, and we'll address that later.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I feel like the quarterback room is going to shake down.
Yeah. So I was doing some research. And so, like, I'm a big data driven person. And when it comes to the quarterback position, you got to have somebody who can protect the football and that is going to make the right play almost every single time. Obviously, quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. That stuff happens. But, you know, when I was watching the spring game, it just felt like Will Howard had the most command of the offense, and he just seemed the most comfortable. I think Devin Brown, as far as the progress that he's made from, you know, last year to this year, like it can't go unnoticed. And I think he deserves to be in this battle very, very, like he deserves to be in it. I can say the same thing about Julian Sayin. I think Julian Sayin is so far ahead of where most freshman quarterbacks are at this time. The fact that he got so many reps and that they put him in with the ones and that they gave up his black stripe as fast as they did, like they know this guy is the future. And so when Coach Day at the end of the game in that press conference says that he's in the mix, he's in the mix. Like he's very much in the mix. But the one thing that stood out to me, and shout out to 11 Warriors, they did a good job of really charting each one of their passes. With the wind, you never really got a good look at if we could throw the ball down the field. And that is something that's going to separate us. That is something where we are going to be able to utilize a Jeremiah Smith, a Jaden Ballard to take the top off of these defenses. And so I think that is where the true separation at quarterback is going to happen. We're not there at the practices and stuff. You see some clips. We know Devin Brown has a cannon of an arm, but he's not always the most accurate, right? And then we know coming from Kansas State, Will Howard struggled throwing the ball down the field. He progressed kind of as the year went on last year. But Julian Sayin might throw the most accurate deep ball on the team. And so, like, I think that's going to be where who has command and who can get the ball and stretch the ball down the field. I think that's what's going to separate the most. But if you look at the quarterbacks, the top three guys, I mean, they were all pretty efficient. You know, Will Howard was 9 for 13 for 77 yards. There was a bunch of times he probably could have tucked the ball and ran, and we know that's going to be a part of his game. And so that's one thing I cannot leave out. I firmly believe he's going to be a 500-yard rusher for us this year. I really do. I think he could have double-digit touchdowns when we get down into the red zone just in the run game. And to me, that is one thing that separates Devin Brown and him from Julian Sayin, is that ability to run the ball in the red zone. I can't stress enough as a defensive coach, when we get down in that red zone and you're able to get an extra blocker with the running back and then to have the quarterback who's 6'5", 247 pounds, that is like a defensive coordinator's worst freaking nightmare when you get inside the 10-yard line. Like it is almost, I don't want to say it's unstoppable, but it's pretty dang close. Like it's very difficult. So that element that Will Howard has, I think could really separate him, but he was efficient. You know, Devin Brown, 5 for 7, 66 yards, had great RPO to the walk-on Schramm. I thought that was a great ball, great read by him. And then Julian Sayin, you know, 10 for 17, 85 yards. He did have the pick. And like you said, the wind and everything, like, yeah, that's tough, you know. And they were talking about it on the podcast today where he's like, he's from Carlsbad. I don't know if he's ever had bad weather like this or wind blowing like this or so it was a lot of different things. And so I think those are the top three, and I don't think it's close. I love Lincoln to death, and I want him to be in that mix. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, the coaches have really set these guys, these top three apart. And so honestly, and this might be a little bit of a, I don't want to say it's a hot take, but I would be perfectly fine with any of these guys as our starting quarterback. I could totally get it where if they said, you know, hey, they're all on an even playing field, we're going to go with the young guy. Totally get that. Typically, you say, like, all right, if I've got a senior and I've got a freshman and they're at the same level, well, might play the younger guy because I'm going to have him and he can develop longer for us. And so I'm good with all three. I think they will all have command of the offense, and it was good for me to see that they all felt pretty comfortable, even though Julian threw that pick and some people say he struggled. Like, I never watched him and said, oh, he looks frantic. Oh, he doesn't look like he's in control. I think he just is a freshman and he made some freshman mistakes. And so, you know, the quarterback position, it will shake out. At the end of the day, though, I do feel Will Howard will end up separating himself. That running ability, man, we can't overstate how important that will be for us moving forward. So that's my thoughts on the quarterback position, man. I'm happy with where we are. I think we're farther ahead offensively than where we were last spring. And, I think Will Howard could be a guy that really takes us over the top, but, Coach Day is the guru. So whatever he decides to do, like, hey, I'm rocking with it.
Yeah, and real quick on Will Howard's downfield struggles last year and before that at K-State. I mean, I think some of that, and I didn't watch a lot of him at K-State. I watched when they were on TV here and there, but I highly, highly doubt that he had the guys that can create the separation he's going to have now.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to follow. Real quick on the coaching side of things, obviously Chip didn't show a whole lot.
Yeah.
The wing tee, awesome.
That was pretty cool.
I think you're going to see it in a game.
Yeah,
I 100% think you do. RPOs, I had heart palpitations because I was so excited to see that.
Yeah.
And then something we don't see a lot because a lot of times they'll throw a tight end in that situation is a 4 wide set.
Yeah.
We were running a true 4 wide sometimes. And then obviously just the caveat of Quinshawn and Travion on the field at the same time. You add Will Howard being able to run, and like you said, a defensive coordinator sitting there wondering, am I about to get +1 or are they going to bust it outside?
Absolutely.
So that was just kind of the quick hitters on coaching. I'm sure there were some things that stood out to you as well.
Yeah. Like you said, with Chip Kelly, we're going to get a lot of different stuff, and I think we're going to get some diversity in the run game. One of the things that we saw on one of the good runs that Quinshawn had was that it's called a fold where, they're running some sort of zone scheme and the guard down blocks on the nose and the center wraps around and he works up to the linebacker, and he did a good job of sealing Sonny. Quinshawn was able to bounce it outside. It was a good play. So I think we're going to see some diversity in the run game, and that's going to be a huge, huge asset for us. The one thing that, people have to remember about Chip Kelly, he wants quarterbacks that can run the ball. They've got to be able to run the ball. You look at the quarterbacks that he's had the most success with when he was at UCLA, DTR was pretty freaking good. As a runner, he developed, and that was Chip Kelly's guy. And so, he wants to be able to have guys that can run the ball. So I was excited to see that. I am a big, 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 big advocate for 10 personnel, which is, like you said, with 4 true wide receivers on the field and 1 running back in the game. I think we need to utilize that more. We just have so many good skill players. Our receiving core is just so talented. I love G. Scott. I love Will Kazmarek, Jelani, all those guys. But if I can have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and Emeka all in the field at the same time, or add Jaden Ballard in there, like, let's freaking do it. Like, I want as much speed on the field as possible. I want them to have to guard all 4 guys. And so, I would like to see more of that. And like you said, we saw a little bit of it, so that's good. So, I think coaching wise, you could just see it on Coach Day's face, how happy he is with his coaching staff right now. Like, and as a head coach, and as somebody who's called those plays or been at the top, to be able to sit back and trust that your guys are doing the right stuff and that they're being coached, as a head coach, it's such a good feeling. For me personally, when I was able to sit back and watch CJ and watch Matt Waddle and watch Corey Chapman dial stuff up on offense, against Pleasant that one year, where we beat them when we weren't supposed to, like, to be able to trust that I got 3 guys who are now head coaches that are able to go do these things. Like, it's such a good feeling as a head coach. And so I was happy to see that for Coach Day. And I like where we're going coaching wise. I was hoping they would interview Coach Locke. I wanted to hear him in game, what's going through his mind. I wanted to hear that. So hopefully we can get something in the fall, like a mic'd up day for Coach Locke. That'll be great.
He was probably thinking about soft batch cookies. And then, just a little caveat, couple guys that we expected to see going into the week and a half before dinged up, and Coach Day referred to them as procedures they needed to get done.
Yep.
Lorenzo Styles is balled out all spring.
Balled
And then
out.
he shows up in a sling, and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Ennis rolling around on a scooter,
Yep.
and then G got dinged up, I think, on that first drive.
Yep.
And saw him on the bike. I don't think it's anything to worry about. But you hate to see guys dinged up. And then obviously you still got Lathan Ransom didn't play.
Yep.
There's a couple other guys that were hurt. But are you worried about having these little type of instances already?
I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, man. You're going to get those little nicks and dings. The timing of it sucks because you don't know the severity of it, especially with Lorenzo Styles being in that sling. Excuse me. I tore my rotator cuff and my labrum. I've been in that sling, and then it's not fun. So it's those type of things like get me a little worried about, some of the injuries, especially with him specifically. But, that's just it's the nature of the beast, man. And that's why it's so important to have quality depth. That's why you can't get your feelings hurt. You got to be able to bring in as much competition as possible. And so that's where, am I concerned? Not really concerned. I just, for the sake of the kid, for the sake of G. Scott and Lorenzo Styles and those guys, Brandon Ennis, I just hope that it's not serious because I know how hard they have worked to put themselves in the position that they're in. So am I concerned? No, but I want to see those guys get back to full strength because those are guys that we're going to rely on heavily in the fall.
Absolutely. That's kind of a spring game recap. Like we said, a lot of visitors on campus and potentially there could be some crazy stuff to come out of this weekend when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Things that Berm put it best. I listened to his talking stuff last night, as I was laying in bed, and he put it best. He wants Ohio State to be the bully on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
There's a very real chance that the number one player in the 2026 class reclassifies to 25
and
ends up in Columbus.
Yeah.
And the caveat to this, the kid's from Louisiana.
Yeah.
I'm as guilty as anybody for the last 10 years. You don't go to Louisiana and win as Ohio State. The last guy from Louisiana that I can think of is Nader Abdallah.
Wow.
I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there.
Yeah, I would have never even guessed that one.
But that's the last guy that I can legitimately, off the top of my head, say here's a guy from Louisiana.
Yeah.
But we did get 2 commitments on Saturday.
Yep.
Both expected. With that, we are up to the number 1 class and the number 1 player ranking. The first one, we hinted at this one last week or 2 weeks ago. Cody Haddad, Cleveland State Ignatius. This kid's better than the Stars. We've said, there are times that Stars matter, and then there are times that Stars don't matter.
Yeah.
This is a kid that was hurt last year. Got to play the back 4 games, I think.
Yeah. He only got to play 4 games. I know that.
So he's a safety. And again, going back to listening to Berm last night, he put it best. This is the type of kid that Perry Eliano would make weight.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So now you've got 2 safeties in a class that you're probably going to take 4.
Yeah.
But now you can swing for Trey McNutt, and Fahim. This kid is actually ranked as an athlete. He's not even ranked as a safety. But bloodline.
Yeah.
Grandpa was an All-American at Penn State, played in the league. Dad played in the league. Multiple uncles that played, Power 5 college football. This is a kid who's going to get a bump in the fall, as he gets on film. Decommitted from Wisconsin. So shout out Coach G for identifying, pursuing, and landing him.
Absolutely. He's a stud. He's one of my favorite players in this entire class. He's violent. He's physical. He's athletic. He's got ball skills. He's a dog. Like, he fits the mold of what we're seeing now from BIA. We need guys that have that just, I am the best dude on this field at all times, and I will shut down anybody and anywhere. And so Coach Fickle loves those type of guys. And so that's why Coach Fickle wanted him at Wisconsin. And so for us to flip him, that is a big deal. I think, like you said, his star rating will improve now that he's committed to the Buckeyes. And if he can stay healthy this year, you will see that star rating go up. But don't look at it. Look at the film. Watch the film. St. Ignatius plays one of the toughest schedules in the country. All right. And he is a dominant player on the field at all times. And so I love this kid, man. He's at the end of the 24 recruiting class with Coy Perch, when we were trying to get him from where's he from? Minnesota. Yeah, this kid reminds me, he's not as physically developed as Coy was, but from a talent standpoint, this kid is right there on par with Coy Perch. And I think Coy Perch would have been a freaking steal for us. Like, he was extremely talented. So Cody Haddad he's a dog. He fits what we need. And like you said, shout out to Coach G, man. There's no need, in my opinion, for these Midwest kids who have the ability to play at Ohio State. Screw the star ranking. If they have the ability, get them here. And so that way you can lay that really firm foundation so you can go swing for Fahim and Trey and whoever else. And that way, okay, we didn't land Fahim. We're still going to go all in for Trey. And we've already been recruiting this other kid. We haven't said to wait. We just know we're going to be in a little late on him. Like, lay that foundation. I think the Buckeyes have done a really good job with that, with him and Deshaun Stewart. So, this kid is special, Buckeye Nation. You guys need to turn on his film. He's really good.
He's very, very good.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one. And then Nate Roberts, ever since getting the job, all you hear is, can Coach Key recruit? Can Coach Key recruit? This was Coach Key's dude.
Yeah.
4-star, number 5 ranked tight end in the country. So, yes, in this situation, very highly ranked. To go to Oklahoma and pull this kid whose brother plays at Oklahoma. So, apparently he does have family in Pickerington.
Okay.
So, it's a situation where, yeah, you're going far away from home, but you've got family around.
Yeah.
6'4", 235. That build to me is like Jeremy Ruckert. Maybe add a little more beef, and he will when he gets here.
He will.
So the kid can catch, the kid can block. I've heard multiple people, the comparison is he is what Cade Stover would have been had Cade Stover played tight end all 4 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty high praise.
That's
Ohio
pretty
State
high praise, man. You don't need to say much else about him if that's
no. And it sounds like there were 2 kids recently. One from I think Westchester, Lakota, somewhere Cincinnati-ish, and then one from Indiana. Both had Ohio State offers. Normally, the kind of kid Ohio State would pull, but Ohio State. Both of those kids went to Miami because it's it sounds like Nate Roberts has been a silent for a while.
Yeah.
So, this kid's tough. I'm excited for that one. And anytime you can go to a state you don't normally recruit real heavy like Oklahoma and get a kid, that stands out.
Yeah, that's a big deal, man. Like you said, to have that connection to Oklahoma and be able to pull him out, get him to Ohio. Shout out to Coach Keenan, Coach Bailey. He was Coach Key. Sorry, Coach Key. Got to get that right. Shout out to Coach Key for identifying his guy and going to get him. Like, that is big. I think that's been an issue for us. We've identified our guy in years past at different positions and we've missed. And so for him to go get his guy, that's a big deal. So shout out to Coach Key. I know he's going to be coached up, and we'll have Coach Hinton helping him out too. So that'll be good
for sure. So the big elephant in the college football world, the spring portal opens tomorrow.
Dun, dun, dun.
We got to eat some crow, bro. we sat here last week and we talked Dallin Hayden up.
Dude.
This kid's going to stay. This kid's built different. He's going to make a difference. And then my man dips. I hope Dallin Hayden goes somewhere and plays really well.
Yep.
But after what we saw Saturday, this may be a semi-homer take. Did Dallin Hayden get passed up?
I mean, it's hard for me to say that because I think Dallin Hayden is a dog. But with what we saw on Saturday, I don't know if there was that big of a difference between the bottom three running backs and Dallin Hayden. And so I wonder if Dallin Hayden kind of saw that and was like, okay, I might not, even next year, I might not get the lion's share of these carries. So it might be time to field some of these text messages and calls that I've been getting from these other programs so I can go be the dude. And so, man, you're right, though. We do have to eat crow because I was pretty freaking sure that he wasn't going anywhere. But, the state of college football right now, you just never freaking know. And like, that is the biggest thing. We talked about it a long time ago with people just dropping bags. Like, you just never know. Like, did we ever expect for Quinshon Judkins to say, hey, I've got the most touches in college football over the last 2 years. I want to save myself. Hey, Ohio State, I want to come run next to Travion Henderson, right? Nobody expected that, but it happened. And so, transfer portal stuff, NIL stuff, you just never know. So we got that one wrong. It's okay. It's all right.
So, but it's funny that you bring up Quinshon because the scuttlebutt out there is Dallin Hayden is going to Ole Miss.
I could see Lane Kiffin making that happen.
Oh, Lane is salty.
Yeah.
You got to figure that's 3 dudes that we have taken in the portal from them in 2 years. Yeah. Tywone Malone, who after Saturday, watch out for him. Yeah. IGB, which a lot of people forget, came from Ole Miss. Dog. And then Quinshon.
Yeah.
So, not a knock on Dallin Hayden, but if I'm picking Quinshon Judkins or Dallin Hayden, I'm taking Quinshon Judkins
all day long. All day long.
And with the way it sounds like the 2025 running back class is shaping up, I get it, Dallin. I do.
Yeah, totally get it.
That class is this close to getting real special in the running back room.
Yeah, and the one thing that I think, Buckeye Nation and just all college football fans need to understand, like, you can never fault somebody for wanting to do what they feel is best for them. We say it all the time. I say it all the time as a coach, having coaches resign or decide to take another job and different things like that. At the end of the day, you got to do what you feel is going to set you up for the best possible future. And if Dallin Hayden saw that and he wanted to go to Ole Miss or Tennessee or Toledo, it didn't matter, wherever he wanted to go and say, hey, I just want to go play so I can give myself the best shot to go play at the next level. Yep. Hey, man, go do it. You dealt with a lot of crap here as a Buckeye. Last year, nobody understood why you were being redshirted. You could have been helping us. And so there was a lot of questions. Your coach leaves, hey, go ball out, go make as much money as you can. And I hope you get drafted in the first round when you
right. I mean,
it's with the transfer portal, like, hey, if that's what you feel, go do it. Nobody's going to say you're scared of competition because you stuck around when you didn't have to. And so, hey, Dallin, go do what you got to do, man. I hope you go ball out wherever it is that you go. I just hope we don't run into you. And if we do, I hope we beat the brakes off you. But, it's the transfer portal, man. It's just crazy. I don't even have words for
it. It sounds like a lot of, the quote unquote insiders tune has kind of changed. A couple weeks ago, you heard astronomical numbers being thrown out there.
Yeah.
Bobby Carpenter said on his show he thinks 5 to 6.
Yeah.
With one of them being a surprise. Berm says to his knowledge he doesn't think it's going to be anybody from the 2 deep, but there are important conversations going on this week, especially today. Obviously I don't want to throw names out there because that's no bueno. I do have an idea of who I think the surprise one could be. I'm going to set the over-under for guys we lose to the spring portal at 7.5.
Okay.
The way I've got it, I think you lose a QB.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think it's pretty obvious, based on our conversation earlier, who I think is the odd man out, and it sucks because I think he's awesome.
Yeah.
Good kid. I had some dude on Twitter take me to the ringer for this, because I was like, I wasn't in the stadium, but because of the way that Fox broadcasted it, it just felt different.
Yeah.
When he was in the game.
Yeah.
Coach Day seemed more agitated. He just looked off, almost to a point of, how we said Julian Sayin didn't look frazzled. LK looked a little distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you lose a quarterback. Obviously, you're losing Dallin Hayden. I think you could lose 2 O-linemen potentially. I think there's a chance you lose a safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other factor to this is I think you're going to see some medical retirements.
I do too.
I think Court Williams is obviously a candidate for that.
Gosh, it sucks too.
And that sucks. Jahad Carter potentially.
I know.
So I mean, like I said, I think the biggest thing to come out of this 2-week portal window for me, I hope like hell that Kenyatta Jackson stays a Buckeye.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the tough part, man. Like those days of, you remember at Georgia when they had Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and all those stud running backs, or you think about Alabama when they had all those stud running backs, and those days might be coming to an end because there will be opportunities for these guys to go play at other places. And I want Kenyatta to stick around because I think Kenyatta Jackson has potential to be an first-team all-conference type player, day one draft pick. Like I truly, truly, truly believe he's got that potential. He's just behind 2 other guys that are going to be a first and a second round pick likely. Like it's just a tough situation. And so this is where the Buckeyes need to make sure, and I think they will, find a way for ways for these guys to get on the field. And that's one of the things that they've got to really work on. So like you said, I hope that he sticks around, I think there will be 8 or 9 guys that leave. That's just my opinion. I just think we have so many skill guys. I have a hard time believing that all of those receivers are going to stick around, especially those third-year guys. I'm the biggest Keon Grace fan. I think he has so much talent, so much potential. He just come into a situation where he got overlooked because of people like Marv and JSN and those guys who were here. And so, I think Kojo's a great freaking kid. I hope he sticks around, you know what I mean? But I just don't know. Jaden Ballard, like I really hope he sticks around. But some of those skill guys kind of worry me a little bit, and I could totally understand if they wanted to dip and hit the portal. So, with the medical retirements possibly happening and some of those skill guys, I think we'll be in the 8-ish range, like you said, and it sucks. It sucks, but when you have a loaded roster that's got a ton of depth, that's the stuff that's going to happen in this day and age. And we just got it. That's the new normal. And we just gotta start to accept it and understand, like, hey, we might get 8 guys that leave, but we also have the opportunity to go get guys that want to be here. And so, those guys, like potentially that running back from UMass or some smaller school guys who balled out and just want an opportunity to go play for a natty, or you go get, those offensive linemen who may not be a draft pick type, but they're a grad transfer and they're just mean and nasty, and you go get those guys, and those guys are going to help you win a national championship. I mean, you just watch what Michigan's done up front the last however many years, and it's, so it sucks to talk about guys leaving, especially guys that I feel like in my heart want to be Buckeyes. But at the end of the day, like we said before, those guys got to do what's best for them. And, I do think there's going to be a surprise. I don't know who that surprise will be, but I do envision there being one. And like you said, I don't expect one of the quarterbacks to stick around. I do expect one of them to leave. So, I want to be worried about it, but it's college football in 2024. Like, it is what it is, man. Those guys may leave and then wish them well, and I hope they go ball out, but we'll find guys that will be able to replace them. And I mean, we're pretty freaking stacked. It's hard to.
It'll be interesting to see, like the team up north after their spring game.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on up there. The whole looming punishments and stuff like that. But if Kenneth Grant wanted to enter the transfer portal and come to Ohio State,
come on,
I would be okay with that.
Come on.
You've got Peyton. It sounds like Peyton Kirkland.
Okay.
Kid we recruited is entering the portal. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be some dudes out there, and you've got the rumored. We've heard it for 3 months that a lot of the early enrollees, especially down in Coral Gables, the checks are bouncing. So, who's to say that you don't get some revisit there? So yeah, I mean, we may lose 7 or 8 guys, but you could definitely add. I don't know that you add an equal number, because then at that point, I think you take a dude like TC Caffey and give him a Scully.
Yeah, I think he definitely has to get a scholarship.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there.
You hit on something with one of the teams in Florida. What you said with the checks bouncing. One of the things that I want people to really think about when it comes to NIL, when these players or these schools or programs are offering money up front, that is where a lot of these schools are getting in trouble. And by all accounts, I could be totally wrong on this, but by all accounts, the 1870 Society and the foundation have figured out a way to kind of do it right. And based on conversations that I've had with some parents who are, at Power 5 schools throughout the Midwest, one of the things that we have to really think about is if a player, let's say, I'm the head coach at Texas, and I want to offer a kid $200,000 to come play, and be a Longhorn. The schools that are finding themselves in good financial standing are the schools that are spreading that money out over 4 years. Okay, so hey, I gave you $200,000. You're going to get $50,000 a year. So as a school or as a foundation or a collective, now you're like, if you leave after 1 year, okay, well, you got the 50 racks, and then you can go move on, and I get to save the rest of this money, and we get to go in another direction. But when you promise the money up front, eventually you got to pay the piper. Like you've got to come pay the money. And so that's why I think, Ohio State, and again, we don't know. I don't know. I feel like Ohio State's NIL has finally started to figure it out. And so I think we've got to, realize like how good we've got it right now with the foundation and the 1870 Society, and understand like, that upfront money sounds good to these kids, and, but it doesn't always happen that way. And so, shout out to 1870 Society and and the foundation and Cardale and those guys. It seems like they're doing it the right way. And so, that's one thing that we've got to really pay attention to when kids get a bag. They say they get a bag, but when they go to cash a check, they don't have the funds available. And so, that's again, we talk about it, man. It's college football, man. It's just crazy. It's just crazy that we're here.
And I think that's one thing OSU does is it's a combination. Yes, they're getting money, but you're talking apartments, cars,
Yep.
So, things that, you don't have to spend your stipend on,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at this week. And, that's not even hitting on great day today for the basketball Buckeyes, for the Lady Buckeyes.
Yep.
Lots of things happening in
Lots of good
CBUS.
things happening, man.
Real quick, we did ask for some questions.
Okay.
So we did get a few. First one, if Kyle McCord did not transfer, where would he realistically be on the depth chart?
Honestly,
it's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
The room does not look like it does today if he's still here.
No, it doesn't. But it's also, I do think there would have been a change at the quarterback coach position. And I do think somebody else would have been coaching the quarterbacks. And I could say with pretty good authority that Kyle McCord probably would be a much improved player in year 2. The issue is, was he willing to compete? And that's where the issue comes. And so do I think, he would have been an all-world, first-team All-American, top 5 draft pick player? No. But I do think he would have been improved. And I do think if our roster looked like it does right now with Kyle McCord, I still think we would be a national championship contender.
Yeah, I mean, I very rarely have, we've always said we're players, guys.
Yeah.
But, there's way too much smoke out there for a lot of it to not be true about McCord, his father.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the starter if he's back. I don't know who is, but obviously I don't think you get Will Howard if he's here.
Nope.
And you probably don't get Julian Saint.
Nope.
So at that point, if healthy, I think it's DB.
I do think DB would have ended up overtaking the job.
Yeah. When are we going to talk baseball? Well, the Guardians' best pitcher is having Tommy John. They almost got swept by the Yankees. Baseball's tough as a Cleveland fan. So, we'll throw some nuggets out there now. Jackson Holiday, first major league hit, though. How about that for you, BP?
There we go. You want to talk baseball, BP? Let's just go back and let's think about the greatest pitching duo in gosh, I just forgot the youth baseball. Steve Hogg,
baseball for youth.
Baseball. There we go. Baseball for youth history. And Brett Payne and myself, we were the aces, 1A and 1B, or as Joel Klatt said, 1A and 1A the other day with the running backs. On the mound, BP would go 3 innings, I would go 3 innings, won a championship, a couple championships. So yeah, that's the baseball talk I'm going to give you. Listen,
I mean, we can talk about the greatest Federal League game in Marion County history at some point.
Okay.
That would be the Prospect team and a River Valley team.
Okay.
Let's just put it. Here's your teaser. Prospect, number 1 seed, goes down 8-0 in the first inning.
Okay.
We're going to leave it at that for now.
Okay.
Is Jeremiah Smith already wide receiver 1? No. Emeka Ibuka is wide receiver 1. Now, that's not to say that may change, at least in my opinion. Emeka right now, you combine experience, leadership, and he's probably just a little bit more versatile at this point because you can line him up outside. You can put him in the slot. You can use him as an H-back, Jalen Marshall style.
Yeah.
I would say no to that one.
I will respectfully disagree with my colleague, Jeremy here. I do think Jeremiah Smith is wide receiver 1. And I do think that because of that, Emeka is going to have well over 1,000 yards receiving because he's going to be the guy that is kind of forgotten about i.e., 2 years ago when Marv went nuts and Emeka quietly had one of the most productive years in college football. I think we're going to get back to that because Jeremiah is such a physical specimen. And you heard Coach Day say it in the spring game. He's like, we want to feature him. He only got like 22 reps in the spring game. Like Emeka got more than him. You know what I mean? And so like that is
Touché.
that tells me a lot. And so I do think Jeremiah is wide receiver 1, but when it comes to overall production, I do think Emeka will have more production because of the rise of JJ this year. So I do think he's wide receiver 1.
I like it. Now, if we could get him to work on his autograph's brutal, man.
Hey, you gotta, you know, it happens.
So real quick, Mount Rushmore for the day. Sports TV show characters. This one was tough.
This is awful. This was hard.
So I ranked mine. We'll go from 4 to 1. Number 4 from Friday Night Lights, Tim Riggins. Just an epitome of what so many kids in this country deal with.
Absolutely.
Terrible home lives. Borderline depression of sorts, I would say. I'm no shrink.
Yeah.
Wanting to break the mold, always trying to hustle, find something, so Tim Riggins, number 4.
Okay.
Number 3, this one still tugs at the heartstrings. Billy Baker.
Oh, Billy Baker.
Spoiler alert, if you're not caught up, just yes.
Yeah.
Honestly though, Billy Baker's Dion.
Yeah.
I mean, it 100%.
Yeah. Side note, didn't mean to cut you off. My college roommate, go follow Tay Diggs, Billy Baker, on Instagram. His most recent post is one of my college roommates, one of my best friends from college. He's a all-time, like a paid extra. So he's an extra in every All-American episode. And him and Tay Diggs have gotten close. So it's pretty cool to.
Tay Diggs follows me on Twitter. I mean,
well, there you go.
But I think he follows everybody on Twitter, kind of like John Cena.
Yeah.
Number 2, this one was tough because I had to rep the show, but I didn't know who to rep it with.
Okay.
So I'm going with Whitey Durham from One Tree Hill.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
And number 1, we're going to go back to the Dillon Panthers. And we are going with Coach Eric Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's tough.
That's my 4.
That's tough to leave him off the list. So, all right, that's a good 4. I wasn't expecting the Whitey Durham. I was not expecting that. I thought I was one of the only One Tree Hill fans out there, but
no. Multiple times watching it.
Okay, so it's a great list. I had to do 2 honorable mentions. All right. The first one I couldn't include in my Mount Rushmore because the show is fairly new, and I've only watched the first season. I still haven't watched the second season of the show. It's Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is that first season. I have
not watched it yet, so that's why.
Dude, the first season of that show, phenomenal. Like phenomenal. And it's just so many good things, and it's just great. So shout out Ted Lasso. That would be one of my honorable mentions. And then my other one, I know people think about the Fresh Prince and they don't think about sports, but Will Smith was quite the hooper in the show. And so during those battles that he had with some of the people that he went against, and Carlton taking that last shot and everybody being mad at him, Will Smith, Fresh Prince, would have to be up there for me. So, but my top 4, I will rank these. Okay. Number 4, Spencer Strasmore from Ballers, the Rock's character in Ballers. that show, phenomenal. The last season of the show was kind of shaky, but you got to see a side of the NFL that you don't really see because the show was on HBO. So you got to see a side of the NFL that people actually, live. And so I thought The Rock did a good job of bringing light to that. So Spencer Strasmore will be number 4 for me from Ballers. Number three for me would be Tim Riggins. Tim Riggins, like you said, just dealing with a lot of the stuff. And if you've played a sport, you've all played a sport with a guy who could care two you-know-whats about doing the gassers or anything like that, but he to this day bleeds the school's colors, was the toughest player on the team, and could care less if he went and played in college, right? I'm just going to go work and get a 9 to 5. I can think of 3 guys right now that I played with in high school that are just like that. So Tim Riggins, number 3 for me. Number 2, Coach Taylor. Coach Taylor wasn't my favorite character until he went to East Dillon. Once he went to East Dillon, I was like, okay, this guy, he gets it. To me, to be able to adapt to your surroundings, I thought they did a good job of showing the evolution of a coach who is only about winning. And then he goes to a place where he's got to build relationships first and trust first to get the most out of them. And so it's very reminiscent of a lot of things that we've had to deal with here in Marion. And so when he went to East Dillon, that's when he became my guy. And number 1, One Tree Hill, Nathan Scott.
Ooh.
Nathan Scott, for the first season of that show, I hated his guts. I couldn't stand him, right? But then they did a deep dive into his relationship with his dad, and then he started evolving and all the things that he had to overcome, and then having a kid at a young age. And by the end of the show, however many seasons it was at the end, he was like a superhero. He was like the greatest guy ever. Got to live out his dreams playing professional ball. Nathan Scott, all-time favorite sports TV character. Not even close.
I think our next 2, we're going to build off of these now.
Okay.
So
all right.
Our next, maybe not our next 2, because we got some cool stuff coming.
Yeah, we got some cool stuff.
So we'll see. We might, spoiler alert, special guest next week.
Yeah.
Potentially the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we may throw him into this though, because I'm going to guess that he'll know.
Yeah.
So we're going to do Friday Night Lights characters only, excluding Coach Taylor and Tim Riggins, since we use them both.
Okay.
And we will do One Tree Hill characters, excluding Whitey and Nathan.
Gosh.
Because, there's some depth there, though.
There's some depth.
Q.
There is some depth. Don't make me cry. All right.
I mean,
don't make me cry on here.
Spoiler alert: if we do One Tree Hill characters, Peyton Sawyer is making the list.
Man.
We're just saying,
Yeah.
But I don't think Tyra Collette makes the list on the Friday Night Lights list.
No, she can't.
Awesome episode. I feel like today. I hope everybody enjoys it. Thanks to guys for being patient with us. I know we had some people probably having withdrawals today. Looking at you, Brett Payne, Scott Kelly. I know where you're going to go with this week's shout out, I think. So I'm going to let you have it.
Gosh, there's so many things, so many people I could shout out this week. But I'm going to give a nod. I want to give a nod to the Ohio State coaching staff, specifically Jim Knowles. All right. Jim Knowles, the Riverboat Gambler. I think he's getting back to who he is. And so, Buckeye Nation, I want us to understand how lucky we are to have this guy. He is a true football coach. He's different. He's a little weird, but Coach Knowles knows his stuff. He is elite. And so I'm hoping that we get to see that elite coaching ability at its highest level this week. So I want to shout him out. I got a good one I'm going to save for next week. But Coach Knowles, shout out to you, my guy.
Your one next week might be the one I thought you were going to go with today. So I was wrong. We were wrong about Dallin Hayden. I was wrong today.
Yeah.
So looking ahead real quick, because we've talked about it the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to spoil who the special guest is yet, but we're still ironing out the details. But at least next week, we are going to do a draft.
Yeah.
Of Buckeyes. If we were building our ideal college football team, so more details to come. We will actually post ahead of the episode what the parameters are going to be.
Yeah.
There will be 3 people picking.
Yep.
So that, makes it a little more fun.
I've already got my big board.
I got a spreadsheet. I'm ready. Our guest is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
He wants to kind of venture into the Ohio State side of life. Very, very, very in tune on the Cleveland Browns side of life.
Yeah.
There's your hint.
Yeah.
So with that said, we went a little bit longer than normal, but I hope you guys enjoy it. With that said, we will see you next week.
Take it easy.